Hello and welcome to the Friday, November 29th, 2019 edition of Tesla Daily, unofficial Tesla podcast. My name is Rob Maurer. This will be a little bit quicker of an episode, not quite as much news with the holidays going on, but still some things to cover. Tesla stock on the day today was down 0.4% to $329.94. That compared to the NASDAQ down 0.5%. First up today, we do have a new firmware version, 2019.40, and this version has a few different improvements. Before we talk about those though, it's worth noting that this is in very limited release at this point, and it seems like Tesla actually pulled it back to some extent. Some people are reporting that they had an update available, and then when they actually went to download the update, it was no longer there. So I'm guessing Tesla just has a few bug fixes here before they continue the broader rollout. Alright, so a couple of the most exciting changes with this update are to Autopilot. The minimum speed that you can now actually set Autopilot to function at has been decreased from 18 miles per hour down to 0 miles per hour. Now, of course, Autopilot always functioned in that speed band, but you couldn't actually set it to be in that speed band. It would only go that low if it had a lead car that it was following. This update now actually allows you to set your speed within that interval. It also means that if you want to, you can now actually stop at a stop sign or a stoplight simply by decreasing the speed of Autopilot, even if you don't have a lead car. That may not be the simplest option, but it does now seem to be an option. It's a nice small sign of progress towards sort of that middle ground between super low speed parking lot autonomy and high speed highway autonomy. Speaking of that topic, TMC user Very Green, or on Twitter Green the Only, found a new label that has showed up in this version of Autopilot called, quote, City Streets Behavior, end quote. No other information on that at this point, but interesting to see that label pop up, and I thought worth mentioning. The other update to Autopilot is to automatic lane changes. They've made some improvements here. From the release notes, quote, automatic lane changes have been tuned to make lane changes with more confidence. When the adjacent lane is detected to be open, automatic lane changes will initiate faster and be more assertive, end quote. I've already seen really good feedback for this online, both on Twitter and on Reddit, with Reddit user Dirty Tesla saying, quote, oh buddy, these are amazing. When you hit the turn signal to make a lane change, you barely get past one click and the car starts to change lanes. Much more similar to the way I and many others change lanes. When using Navigate on Autopilot, when the car initiates the lane change itself, it still waits probably 3 or 4 clicks before it starts changing lanes, end quote. So at this stage, it's no surprise that the manually initiated lane changes are more aggressive than the Navigate on Autopilot entirely automatic lane changes. But of course, as time goes by, Tesla will have more and more confidence in those entirely automatic lane changes, and they should be more aggressive to match what we're seeing now with the manually initiated lane changes. So I think very exciting to see that update. Next is the awaited update to the automatic wiper performance. So this is the initial implementation of Tesla's somewhat facetiously titled Deep Rain neural network for automatic wipers. In the release notes, Tesla says, quote, automatic wipers have been improved to be more likely to activate when it is lightly raining and to respond to changes in rain intensity for more environments. The automatic wipers are now employing the first production deep neural network trained with over 1 million images for the detection of water droplets on a windshield and additional weather cues. If automatic wipers is not performing to your preference, any manual adjustment to wiper speed will be captured to further train and improve the network in future software updates, end quote. Not much feedback yet on how much of an improvement this is, if any, at this point, but I think cool to see it implemented from a conceptual standpoint, because as over time Tesla collects more of this data, we'll see the same sort of improvements that we've seen to Autopilot also happening for the wiper system, which is just a really cool concept. The last major update mentioned in these release notes is an increase to the peak supercharging rate for some versions of the Model 3. So I think the 2019.36 firmware also had made mention of this, but either way, the peak supercharging rate for the standard range and standard range plus Model 3 has been increased to 170 kilowatts. And then for the mid-range Model 3, kind of a unicorn, but for those that have those, it has been increased to a 200 kilowatt peak charge rate. Next is kind of a cool story happening over in Germany. There's a Model S owner over there that has driven his Model S since 2014, now 1 million kilometers. That is 621,000 miles in about 5 years. Why this guy has been driving so much, I haven't been able to find the answer to. He's apparently a foreign exchange currency trader, so I feel like that can't entail 120,000 miles of driving each year. But nevertheless, the condition of the vehicle obviously has had some replacements over that period of time, so it's a rear-wheel drive P85 Plus, He is currently on its 4th motor, so replaced 3 times, and 2nd/3rd battery pack. So he originally had a battery pack up to about 290,000 kilometers, then had a loaner pack while Tesla was either repairing or replacing that other pack. So apparently this loaner pack was around for about 150,000 kilometers. And then finally, a new pack which has powered around 500,000 kilometers. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find the details on degradation of the pack at this point, but definitely a cool milestone, and Guinness Book of World Records was there to record it. He says his next goal is for 1 million miles. Next up is some interesting information on the growth of the Tesla Motors subreddit after the Cybertruck unveiling. On Thanksgiving Day, Tesla's subreddit was ranked number 1 out of all subreddits in Reddit's top growing communities metric. So what that looks at is page views for this week versus page views last week, and then it looks like they're ranked on the difference in volume there, not on the difference in percentages. So what that means is that the page views for the Tesla subreddit increased more than any other subreddit over the course of the week. That's pretty crazy. It's not like there's just a handful of subreddits out there. There are well over 1 million different subreddits. So another example, statistical example of extremely high interest in the Cybertruck. Unique visitors by day went from maybe around 80,000 on average for the weeks leading up to the Cybertruck unveiling to peak at over 550,000 due to Cybertruck. Subscriber growth also increased pretty dramatically, going from an average of about 500 new subscribers per day to over 5,500 at peak. So some pretty cool data there, I thought, and I'm also seeing if we can compare that back to the Model 3 or the Model Y unveilings, because I think that would be interesting as well. Next up, just a quick update on Gigafactory 4 in Germany. There had been some talks about the reforestation that would be required of Tesla to build in the land that they plan to build in for Gigafactory 4. Even with reforestation, though, there was still a bit of an open question on whether there would be any opposition to Tesla clearing that land. But Business Insider is reporting that the Nature Conservation Association in Germany will not protest the construction of the factory, quote, because it is opening up job opportunities for a state that has been struggling with unemployment since the fall of the Soviet Union, end quote. So at this point, it does not look like that would be a cause for delays. Last thing today, not a super fun note to end the week on, but there is something to be aware of this upcoming week on December 3rd, so that's Tuesday. There will be a trial for the Vern Unsworth versus Elon Musk case. Remember, that was the whole pedo guy incident from last year. As of yet, there has been no settlement with that case, so unless something changes here in the next couple of days, it will be going to trial, and Elon Musk's lawyer has said that he will be testifying in that trial. I'm not sure if that for sure happens on Tuesday as well, or if that would be later in the process, but either way, definitely something worth keeping an eye on next week. Again, that is Tuesday. It could present a bit of a risk for the stock, at least in the short term. I don't think there would be anything material to come out of it impacting Tesla for the long term. This is obviously a civil trial, not a criminal trial. Elon Musk is the sole defendant, with Unsworth seeking compensatory and punitive damages. Nevertheless, we know how these things work. This is guaranteed to get a lot of media attention, and they certainly won't be holding back on hyping it up. Definitely will be following that next week. But to end things on a more fun note, I want to say a huge thank you to everybody listening to the podcast in general, but especially so to everybody supporting the podcast on Patreon. Couldn't do it without you. If you want to learn more about that, you can find those details at patreon.com/Tesla Daily Podcast. We have a huge thank you to say this week to one of our newest patrons, Vincent Smith, who has stepped up to support at the ludicrous producer level. That is such incredible support. I really appreciate that, Vincent. Thank you. I also want to thank our newest gold supporter, Peter Vanderlyn, who had a chance to meet at the Cybertruck event. Thank you, Peter. And our newest silver supporters, David Blaisdell, Mel Martin, Vincent Choi, Matt Diedrich, HCJP Blue Sky, Stephen, and Jeremy Gittomer. And then, as always, huge thank you to our platinum producers, Rob Gill, Jeremy Cooke, Rish Singh, Nick Wood, Fela Winkelmolen, and Troy Cherasaro, as well as our platinum supporters, Will Brocklebank, Trillium Smith, Evan Stair, Ty and David Dundas, Rick Sinta, Amir Tobani, Todd Luddington, Tesla in the Gong, Cristobal Boateng, Brad Rode, Alan Rudnick, Timothy O'Grady II, Andre Kent, and Saeed. And of course, all our gold supporters, including Joel Sapp, Andrea Fabretto, Michael Pastroni, Robert Miracle, Brett Young, Craig Murphy, Julian Roloff, Anders Reffeld, Tyler Crawford, The Goobermans, Guy Masters, Daniel Erickson, Joris Pomans, Nathan Lucht, Gregor Weisgerber, James Smith, Joe Bush, Tim Turnstrom, Brian Karotis, Nick Mark, Ron Rubico, Matthew Lipton, Brian Anderson, Tony Naff, Pat O'Shea, Felix Kranberg, Kelly Bergman, Dwight Schum, Samuel Zong, Pitt Hotsteller, Callum Burnett, Jason Daly, Urban Lindeskog, Paul Dobbins, Bian Concepcion, Anders Jensen, Mike McHenry, Stephen Lewis, Daniel Landy, John Ferreira, Will Berger, Ryan Scanlon, Mark Zilka, Dale Lutz, Lars, Chris Dosbach, Karan Varandani, Nils Engelking, Christian Moore, Jeff Lowe, Steve F., Christopher Bauco, Burton Torgerson, Andrew Clark, Josh Sheblum, Brad Lettner, Spencer Gravel, Peter Kuba, Jeff Trapino, Michael Thomas, Dustin Hart, Crypto Dread, Nicholas Latowski, Lewis Ferris, Sam Passing, Danny Hughes, Greg Nichols, Paul Vieger, Eric DeBrune, Doug Wandell, Ali Nasri, Roger McMorrow, Matthias Monkmeyer, Joseph Pai, Alan Levy, Brian Terry, Paul Meester, Jim Prihoda, Chris Duggar, Eric Stewart, Cos Cosmos, Joshua Kessler, Christopher Carroll, Seamus Johnson, and Duncan Ashworth. Thank you guys all so much. Have an awesome weekend, and I'll see you on Monday for the December 2nd episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.